Okay, hello everyone. We are going to start. Thank you for being patient with us. I'm gonna give some ground rules just so that people are aware of what we're doing. The reason I'm saying ground rules, to be deadly honest with you guys, just to remind myself. We've got the amazing Melanie here. It's going to speak to us a lot about what she does, introducing yourself, Melanie, let people know exactly what you do, how to reach out to you. We will post all the links for that as well. And this is also will be and is recording because some people cannot make it, and we'll be posting it on our channels and stuff. And I've got amazing Carly here to give support in any way possible. And also, Carly, this is to you as well. Feel free to introduce yourself. And when we're ready, Melanie and myself and Carly will let people come on stage, ask questions. I really would like this to be as beneficial for all of you. So you leave today with something. You leave today going, okay, I can give this an opportunity. Also, if you end up going, you want to have more insight or knowledge or ways of seeing how you can have support. I know Melanie will be absolutely happy with it. Feel free to reach out to Melanie. And feel free to use the chat and leave questions and all of that, because we will do our best to answer it. So that's it for me now. I'm going to be a silent person unless I need to ask questions, but I will send it to you. Melanie, over to you to introduce yourself. Actually, hold that thought, Mel. Let's do Carly, end up to you, and you can start. Carly, introduce yourself. From you, we go to Melanie, and Melanie dive straight in.
I don't really need to. I'm just here to be the tech support for the evening, but I am an autistic adult and a mum of autistic children, and I'm excited to learn about load marks. So
we're going to start with what do you think about when you hear the word demand? Now, before I understood PDA, when you say the word demand, it kind of implies, to me anyway, someone sternly making a request of someone. And actually, in the Cambridge Dictionary, it defines it as to ask for something forcefully in a way that shows that you do not expect to be refused. But when we think about demands and expectations in relation to PDA, we have to delve so much deeper than that. It's not just about asking them to do things or asking them not to do things. Pretty much with PDA, absolutely everything in life can be interpreted as a demand. And I am going to read out a few examples. Just to give a bit of an overview of some of the things that, you know, if you may or may not expect to be demands. So as I read this out, it's not a case of them being spoken. So the first one I've got is wake up. Now, whether we tell our children to wake up, get ready, etc., whether we voice that to them or whether that just is the expectation of what happens when they get up, they're both demands. If we say it to them as opposed to just expecting them, you've got a direct demand by saying it and an indirect demand when the expectation is just there without saying it. So I'm going to go on. So there's eating breakfast, brushing teeth, brushing hair, get your lunch, don't forget your bag, get in the car. So there's a few that would happen before school, which I know is particularly challenging time for many. Time itself can be a demand, or at the very least increase the demand, having to do things by a certain time or at a certain time or within a certain time. The expectation of writing, which is obviously very high within school. Timetables and schedules and routines, again, kind of comes down to time, doing things at a certain time, but also being in a certain place, doing a certain thing at a certain time. Doesn't give a lot of control to the individual. Schoolwork, homework, eating, drinking, toileting. We have internal demands where the body makes that demand of you. So the body will tell you when you're thirsty, and, you know, some individuals with PDA will avoid drinking or eating when they're feeling hungry, or going to the toilet when they need to go, because the body is making that demand or expectation on them. So self-care, showering, bathing, sleeping, going to social occasions, routine requests, appointments, going shopping, going for a walk, and even things they want to do are demands. It still creates that anxiety, even if it's something they want to do. So I did kind of point a little bit to the different types of demands they are. I'm just going to go through those to make sure we don't miss anything, and then I'll probably pause for a minute, and if anyone has any sort of questions or anything to ask about what demands are, or if you've got an example of one, what category that would fall into, I'm happy to answer any of those questions. So as I said, we've got direct demands, which is a direct request, whether that is spoken or done in a visual way. If that request is asking them to do something, then it is a direct request. I know in a lot of typical autism strategies, the use of visuals is recommended quite a lot, and I completely understand why and acknowledge that. But when someone with PDA is shown a demand visually, it has almost, if not the same effect as if you ask it verbally, because it's still a demand at the end of the day. So you have indirect demands, which is anything, clues in the title, anything indirect. So expectations that aren't verbalized or requested directly of the individual. So you'd have, if you have a morning routine, that would be an indirect demand. The individual can have indirect demands on themselves, such as thoughts of, oh, I should be doing this, or I ought to do that. Internal demands, as I said, are ones the bodily system makes of you. So you need to go to the toilet, the thirst, hunger, that type of thing. And you have things the individual wants to do. So they might really want to go to I don't know, a social occasion or go out for a meal with the family, but the expectation is still there, and the anxiety, it still creates anxiety, which then ultimately still creates avoidance. So it can be really, really tricky to manage. And finally, you have demands within demands, and this example, I think, really helps you to break things down. So that example of going into a restaurant or going out with friends, you could see that as one whole demand, but actually when you break it down, going out for a meal, you've got the expectation to be there at a particular time. How you're going to travel there may vary the degree of the demand. If you have to go by public transport, often that can be more difficult than perhaps being driven somewhere. The social interaction with other people, knowing what to say, having to choose something off the menu, the expectation to behave in a certain way, to sit in your seat, to interact with the staff, that kind of thing. So when we start to break it down, we can really see sort of how these demands build up throughout an individual's day. And it's important to note really that people's tolerance of demands can really vary from almost minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day. You really have to be a bit of a detective with your kids and spot those signs of when they're not coping or they're starting to feel a bit dysregulated, so that you can sort of predict, I suppose, in a way, what reaction you might get. But we're going to come on to that more when we talk through the low demand parenting elements. So I'm just going to pause there and hand back to Asma to see if we have any questions or anything you want to add before we move on. Okay, so I will start that again for the benefit of Zoom. Apologies. So pathological demand avoidance, or PDA for short, is currently understood to be a distinct profile on the autism spectrum. It's not very well known about. I first heard about it 10 years ago. When we were going through the diagnostic process for my son, trying to figure out, the difficulties that he was facing and the challenges we were facing as a family. It has moved on quite a lot since then, but it is still not widely recognized within the UK, and I think even less so outside of the UK. It's not made its way into any of the diagnostic manuals yet, such as the DSM-5 or the ICD, I think 11 we're on. So people are still facing difficulties, although it has got a lot better, still facing difficulties in terms of getting that profile recognized and understood. And it's described as an anxiety-driven need to avoid everyday demands and expectations and to maintain control. And those demands and expectations are your typical and normal day-to-day things that we all go through every day and take for granted. They stack up like building blocks in PDAs, create a lot of anxiety, which then leads to overwhelm and seeing dysregulated and distressed behaviours. The strategies for PDA are quite different to those of typical autism, hence why I help out in a lot of support groups, and you tend to find people coming in having tried all the other parenting strategies, all the typical ones. I know I certainly did when I first came across it. It was at the point where I didn't know what else to do. Came across PDA, took the approaches on board, which were very different to what I had been doing and what society tells you should be doing. But ultimately it had a really positive effect. So yeah, hopefully that's sort of recapped for everybody. And Asma, I'm just going to check if you want me to come back to you before moving on to the next part.
Thank you.
No, that's the thing when you multitask, Mel. You should know me by now. Anyway, serious. Okay, I have got a thing from Lisa on the chat. I am going to read it, and then also please remind me, Mel. You know how my brain works. If people want to come up, I think I might need to tell some of them what they need to do because they might be new to Clubhouse. I'm gonna hand over that part to you. You nail it all the time. So we've got a few comments here. So we. Oh yes, please, Carly. I will mute again. I'll stay on mute actually for Zoom.
Yeah. Okay. So Lisa has said we want to be as flexible and low demand as possible, but it's proving tricky due to the sensory difficulties my son is experiencing. We have a sensory diet based on his assessed needs, but he never perceives the need for it. And because he won't engage with it, he doesn't see the benefit.
Okay. So I think, when we have a sensory diet and things that are suggested for our kids to do to benefit from it, it adds onto those day-to-day things. It's really tricky because on your day-to-day things, on top of the day-to-day expectations, you're going to have sensory issues which are impacting on that as well. And so there is the need for sensory input to help with self-regulation, but having and I'm using inverted commas here, prescribed sensory diet of things to do increases the demand rather than reduces it. So to make that low demand, we had a really good room last night actually talking about how to help our kids self-regulate through play, and there are ways in which you can incorporate the sensory diet really indirectly. So for example, a child who likes deep pressure or likes you know, they tend to seek out things like climbing or bouncing or throwing things or hitting things, and quite a lot of those times it's not an appropriate way, so hence the need for the sensory diet. There may be lots of stuff prescribed to help feed that particular sensory need. However, if it's done in a way of right, it's time to go and bounce on the trampoline, or it's time to do 10 minutes of I don't know, you know, sorry about that, bounce, you know, playing with Play-Doh, or you have to do it in a way that's low demand. If they don't want to do it, they're not going to get anything out of it. And so make it fun and just make it part of day-to-day life. You know, you can feed certain sensory systems through normal day-to-day things. For example, feeding that same system, that proprioceptive system, chewing crunchy foods. You could simply sort of, you know, I used to go down to school armed with chewing gum for my child, because I knew that would help him self-regulate and feed that sensory system that he needed. But it wasn't a demand. It wasn't me saying, right, now we have to chew chewing gum to make sure you're self-regulated. I'm not suggesting that's what you're doing, but there are ways of incorporating it in just to life without it being a thing. So I would try and perhaps think outside the box of how you can incorporate things in a fun way that doesn't feel like a demand.
On Zoom. Yeah, just to say again, thank you very much. I've also got Kali here going to help me profusely and nicely, bless her, to read the chat comments and stuff. Just because I'll be deadly honest with all of you, that's one thing I struggle to do. But before I do, I'll just do again a very quick reminder, because I can see quite a lot of tickets and new faces. Welcome. It's really lovely to see new people. It really is, and that's what one of the main aims is, to grow this community and support that out there, because as we're all aware, there's hardly any support when it comes to pathological demands avoidance, and not as much as knowledge that we would love it to be. And that's also with neurodiverse and so on. So that's the reason we really have got quite a lot of new people here. So if you're not aware what to do and you really want to come up and ask question, there is a mic button at the bottom of your screen. If you click it, it will bring you straight up on stage. This is different from the main clubhouse, because this is a house. Then when you come up, just click it again to mute. And when you're ready to talk, or we come to you, click it again to unmute and ask your question. And if you do want to go back down on audience, because I know some people have said they don't want to stay up the whole time, they get a bit anxious, that's absolutely fine. You hold your profile picture and you will have the option comes up, going back to listening mode, click it, it will take you down, or just stay muted on stage. It's not a problem. Before we come to you, Nia, I just want to acknowledge the people on the chat. So do you mind if I go to you, to Carly, to read all of the comments, then we come to Nia? If you've got any questions, anything, then we go to Mel. I'll mute my clubhouse, but I'll stay on mute on Zoom.
I mean, the comment is from Nia, so I don't know whether she wants to share it herself. It's up to you.
I was just coming up to show people what happened if you came up and how easy it was to go back down, and now I can't go back down. Help, I'm stuck on stage. Yeah, I'll read my comment. So yeah, we sneak in sensory things where we can, or screwing, I think it's called. I think it's normal for unschooling. Or we sort of do them ourselves as modelling. So yeah, with the separate thing, we had an OT assessment probably this time last year, or 2 years ago maybe. And yeah, we've not been able to do a lot of things. He's in burnout for a year. He's 8. He's not 8, he's 7. Sorry, he's not 8 for a few months. I think I'm aging him. So yeah, it's a slow burner, but it gets a few of them in occasionally. Quite a lot of creativity and reactiveness needed, and sort of jumping on opportunities. So yeah, like if you notice that they're doing something, is thinking what is on my list of things that would be good, and how can I sneakily sort of adapt this. So yeah, it's very much building it into the day-to-day. As Mel said, there was a great room last night sort of discussing this. There's not a replay, unfortunately, but yeah, it's just exactly as Mel said, just sneaking it in, and not worrying, not putting too much pressure to do all of it, because if you are going to raise the demands and therefore sort of raise the anxiety, raise that stress response by trying to do them, you're going to have a negative effect anyway. It's going to outweigh the benefit of trying to do it. So yeah, finding that balance. Just reading Lisa's comments. I'll just read it out. Lisa says, our son is 7 too, I'm suffering from burnout, but generally says no to every suggestion I make, even the fun, creative things. Yeah, if you're making it as a suggestion, yes. Yeah, even things you know that they will enjoy, or they do enjoy. Just from our point of view, we doing it. If you're anything like me, then I'm in burnout from helping him through burnout. But yeah, doing the thing and modelling the thing, and having no expectation there'll be any joining in at all, but just doing it every so often. Maybe talking out loud about it. I find it works a little bit here. Oh, thanks, Jen, for helping me get back to the audience. I'll go in a minute. Yeah, I think that's probably the advice, Lisa, that I'd have as well. Just we don't do much of it. We don't do as much as we should. But yeah, just trying to model and do it that way, and just sort of being reactive.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Nia. And thank you for coming up and sharing how it works and stuff. I also have seen, I'm just trying to click on Paula, if you do want to ask a question or anything, or if you just want to stay here and listen, is absolutely fine. I want to give you the opportunity and as well the acknowledgement to say you're here. So do let us know, okay? I am now going to mute on both Clubhouse and Facebook. Apology, I'm going to keep saying that so I remember what I'm doing. And I'll hand over to you, Melanie. It's all yours.
Thank you. So yeah, so we've spoken about what demands are fairly briefly, and talked about how they're cumulative and how they stack up for individuals, all individuals, but obviously I'm talking about it sort of from a parent looking at child point of view. And I explained briefly sort of the reason why reducing demands is important, because when we're seeing the dysregulated behavior, if we're only dealing with the behavior or trying to, I know it doesn't typically work very well, then we're not actually addressing the underlying anxiety which is causing that behavior. So whether you've got a PDA who displays their behavior outwardly, and you might have shouting, swearing, hitting, kicking, you equally have those who are runners or those who tend to shut down. So if you think about the demands in our children, if you can picture an image of a child, just that if you imagine a paper cutout of a child, and probably about a third of those is fill up with you know, the things that they have to do each day, the non-negotiables, we call those. And perhaps the next third of them is fill up with the things that we'd really like them to do each day. But the world is not going to end. Nothing bad is going to happen if they don't. And then the last third, up to the top of the head, is all the things that we ask kids to do that doesn't really matter, such as, I don't know, for me, it's going to vary for everyone, but I think if you're dealing with PDAs, you need to be really flexible with your thoughts on this. So you have the things that don't really matter, such as eating at the dinner table, taking their plates out after dinner, keeping their bedroom tidy. I will caveat that with if it becomes a health risk, but generally keeping bedroom tidy, all those things that most people expect their kids to do at some point or another. But actually, is anything going to happen if they don't do it, other than us as parents possibly being a bit annoyed? So it is really changing your lens, looking at those things. But with regards to the visual I'm trying to create, it's very hard. When I talk through this, I'm usually doing it as a workshop via Zoom, so I can share my screen and show people. So I'm hoping your imaginations are working really well. So you've basically got an individual who's full from top to toe, with demands and expectations of different types. And you might often see that it can be something as simple as, I don't know, they've dropped a pencil on the floor, or they've broken a crayon while colouring, or someone's looked at them the wrong way, and you see this eruption, if you've got one who displays outwardly like mine, eruption of behaviour, and you cannot see where it came from. The overreaction to the thing that triggered it seems, you know, completely out of proportion to the actual thing that triggered it. And this is why I kind of say that it's all that stuff that is built up inside that actually contributes that, and the thing that triggers it is sort of the straw that breaks the camel's back, so to speak. So the reason for low demand parenting, creating low demand environments, that goes for schools as well, is to, so if we get rid of all those silly little things that we expect our children to do, and can be flexible and collaborative around everything else, if you imagine that top third and perhaps a little bit of that next third taken away, they've then got space within their system to deal and to absorb and to manage the pencil breaking or dropping on the floor, or someone looking at the wrong way, because instead of bubbling up out of the top because they're so full, it just bubbles on the inside. And yes, it might annoy them, but you're less likely to see that complete overreaction. So that is going a little bit more in depth about the reason behind low demand parenting. So I'm just going to check in with Asma to see if she wants me to carry on, or whether there's anything to be read out.
Yeah, no, feel free to carry on. There's nothing here on the chat as well, so more than happy for you to plod along.
Excellent. Thank you. So when as we're talking about reducing demands and expectations, when we go through this in a bit more detail, it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. Everyone is at different stages of their life, in or I should say of their journey, not their life, as to where their PDA is at. Some people, their PDA is going to be in burnout. The family itself might be at crisis point, you know, dealing with dysregulated behavior multiple times a day, every day. And you might actually have things pretty okay, but not ideal. So it's really going to depend on where you're at. And the more you are towards burnout and crisis, the more extreme your lens change on categorizing demands and expectations needs to be. So what we usually do is to think about all the demands and expectations for our child, because it's going to be different for everyone. Not everybody follows the same day-to-day routine. Not every child is in school. You know, not every family has the same set of rules in the home or expectations in the home. So it's really important to think about it from an individual perspective. So what I would ask you to do really is perhaps have a think about all the things that happen on a day-to-day basis for your child, and think about the demands and expectations that you can actually just let go of, that aren't going to actually cause anyone any problems. If you just say, actually, right now, this is not a big deal, but more important things that they need to be doing, or that we want them to be doing. And so at least for now, we're going to let go of these ones. And with everything else that's left, so you're going to have your, what's left is going to be your non-negotiables, which we'll talk about in a bit, and your ideally would like to happen ones, I like to call them, which really we need to be flexible with in order to reduce the impact of the demands. So the demands are still going to be there, but we're going to be really flexible about how we ask for those to be done, how we word things, or perhaps we might turn them into a game, or we might offer choice around them. Those are, you know, really the ways that we're going to reduce the impact of those. So for example, teeth brushing is probably quite a big one on everyone's list. And, you know, probably for me, before I really understood PDA, it probably would have been on my non-negotiable list, but no, it's not on the non-negotiable list. Certainly not for us when we were in crisis point. You know, the biggest thing for us was to manage the multiple times a day explosive outbursts. It was keeping everybody safe. That was our non-negotiable. And so things like teeth brushing, yes, ideally we'd like that to happen every day, twice a day, but ultimately in a grand scheme of things, if that didn't happen at the, again, air quotes, right time, right place, it wasn't the end of the world. So you can create flexibility around that. You know, some people take it out of the morning routine altogether and do it after school or just in the evening. You might turn it into a game. You might race them. You might set everything out for them so that it's there when they go to the bathroom, but don't say anything. You might, oh, what was the other one I was thinking of? Oh, it's gone. My brain is gone. But you get the idea that you can really, oh yeah, I know what I was going to say. It might be that you take a bowl of water and their toothbrush to the front room while they're, I don't know, watching their iPad or whatever they do in the mornings, and they brush their teeth in the front room. You've got to look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is getting the teeth done at some point every day. How that happens and when that happens is what you need to be really flexible about in order to reduce the demands. So we're trying to achieve consistent teeth brushing by being flexible. So our ideas of when that happens, it must happen every morning before school, it must happen in the bathroom, you must be independent brushing your teeth, all those kinds of things that when kids get to a certain age, we tend to expect. You might find you need to let go of some of those things in order for the bigger goal to be met. So I'm going to talk briefly about the non-negotiables. Again, this is really the big one. Your non-negotiables is the difference between this working and this not working. The fewer non-negotiables you have, the better. If you're in burnout or at crisis point, your non-negotiables have to be keeping everybody safe, keeping themselves safe. Obviously, non-negotiable around essential medication has to be a non-negotiable. So yeah, everything else, in my opinion, you can be flexible and adaptable about. So I'm going to pause there for a second and just check in with Asma and Carly before I carry on.
Hi, Mel. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, there's a couple of things on the chat that I'm going to pass on to Carly in a minute and stuff. But what I also want everyone to know here, and again, for you, is for those who's not aware, there's a link at the top of our heads, and that is Melanie's link to your website and workshop and all of that. Is that correct? Awesome. She's nodding, so I'll take that as a yes. Also, Melanie, I'm going to ask you again, especially in this room, to plug your workshop that you did, because I know you also have done workshop with this, and there might be downloads and where people can get it. So do remind me, you know how my brain is at the end, please do that. And for the recording's sake that I'm doing here, I will reach out to Melanie and post all of Melanie's links so that it can, you'll be able to reach out to Melanie. Also, I'm aware you might not have opportunity to ask questions. Please do underneath the video and just put hashtag replay. I know it's not a replay just because this hasn't been live, but it's the only way it can remind me to come there. And also Melanie will be able to come straight in and answer your questions. I just really want to make sure everyone's covered, because I post signed it everywhere, and technology and me at this moment, we're in parallel world. So I'm going to mute myself on Clubhouse. So over to you, Carly. I can just see numbers on the chat just in case there's something we need to read and acknowledge. I'm muting now.
Yes, so Nia has said she's only brushed his teeth 4 times this year. Lisa said, we also adopted this approach to sleep. Where you sleep, what you're wearing, time of settling, all flexible. The sleep is the priority. And then Nia said, everything is better with some sleep. Lisa said, exactly, everyone needs sleep, but husband, probably autistic, finds it hard as he never knows where he'll be sleeping.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. And I just want to also give people another reminder, because we'll be finishing very soon. I haven't put a time limit yet. I'm leaving that to Mel. But for you to be aware, if you really want to ask something, share something, do use today as a huge opportunity to do so. There'll be other opportunities and stuff which will direct you later on regarding Clubhouse as well and how it works. I might leave that for the end if I can nail it. Or Melanie, I'm sorry, I'm putting you in a hot spot here. You might do that too. We will come to that. So I am muting now. Over to you, Mel.
Thank you. Yeah, I was actually talking to a client the other day about sleep, and well, I think the situation was that there was difficulty in getting them to sleep in their own. They came to me with the issue of struggling to get to sleep and needing their iPad for longer and longer and longer, and not getting to sleep until later than they would like. And we talked through some of the situation where what had changed, because this was a new thing, where the child was sleeping, what time would be sort of normal bedtime, what time she was actually going to sleep. And there was some discussion around whether there might be some anxiety about being alone, and the topic of co-sleeping came up. And understandably, there was concern about, once you start something like that, how do you get back to how it was? And it's difficult, isn't it? Because during the time where there is difficulty in that child going to sleep or settling in time for them to be up okay for school the next morning or whatever, we're trying, typically as parents, we're trying to make that child go to sleep. So trying the things such as no screen time at bedtime, lights out, and go to sleep in your bed, because that's what children do. You go to sleep in your bed on your own at this time, with your lights off, with no screen time, and that's it. That's tough. You just have to settle and go to sleep. But actually, the anxiety in our children is generally so much higher than other children, and particularly if there's been something that is creating even greater anxiety. It doesn't have to be anything scary. It can be something scary that triggers it, but it might just be that they're having a harder time in school that is generally upping their anxiety levels. And I made the suggestion of, look, what is the bigger picture here? What is the ultimate goal? Is the ultimate goal for everybody to have a good night's sleep? Because it was impacting on both the parents, the siblings, and the child themselves. And I asked the question, would she settle earlier if she was in bed with you, or if someone slept in her room? And there was, as I said, there was some hesitation about that then becoming a thing. And in my experience, kids tend to do the best they can do, like we all do. We all do the best we can do at any given times, and sometimes that best is better than other times, and sometimes it's worse than other times. So if a child is feeling anxious and they need someone to help them settle, and in the bigger picture, we all need to get a good night's sleep we are going to have to perhaps think outside the box until we actually resolve what is going on. If we say, for example, something at school has made anxiety worse, solving situations at school isn't a quick fix. Often is not a quick fix. So it might be that you need to adjust things temporarily, but typically what I find is that when you make those adjustments to help a child feel safe and secure, their anxiety lowers, and then they're more able, not only is everyone getting a good night's sleep, but they're feeling more safe and secure, so that when they are ready, they are able to go back into their own rooms. And maybe that will be a slow transition. I think people often worry about, you know, creating habits, and of course that is a concern. But the alternative is you don't address the anxiety, and everybody continues to have disturbed nights, and the problem doesn't get resolved. So that's an example of what I mean, sort of by a bit of a having a bit of a lens change around what is and what isn't acceptable. And, you know, really a lot of these acceptable and unacceptable ways of parenting come from society. And when I run my course, my workshop, we spend some time talking about society's rules and society's expectations on how we're meant to do things as parents. Parents are some of the most harshly judged people ever, and it's not helped by social media. Everyone posting their perfect days out and their perfect pictures, and oh, how wonderful my children are and how wonderful our family is. And we're at home struggling to get our kids' socks on. You know, it's hard. And if we don't do things in the way that other people do, then we're judged, or at the very least we feel judged and criticized, and we stand out from the norm, and it doesn't feel very nice. So I always say to surround yourself as much as possible with people who are on similar paths, going through similar things, so that you have a crowd of people who are non-judgmental, who are going to understand what you're going through, and, you know, really question how much time you spend listening to other people's opinions who actually don't understand, haven't got a clue what you're dealing with day in, day out. And you know, be brave in what you let go of, because society's expectations don't work for a lot of our kids, and you have to do what works for your family. Otherwise, those who aren't already in crisis or burnout, you know, could potentially be heading that way if we don't start to adjust and change things. So yeah, that was my little, sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent with that because I feel so passionately about it. I think that's what it is. And there was just something else I was going to add before. I'll probably check in for any questions and start sort of rounding things off. The important thing to remember is that when you are trying to adopt a low demand lifestyle, people often think it's just giving in to your child and giving in to what they want. It's not that. We're creating an environment that our children can cope with, and by not doing that, we are setting them up to fail. We're keeping them in an almost permanent fight, flight, freeze response, and that is all they're going to know, how to respond in that way. When we reduce demands and expectations, it lowers the overall anxiety levels, and creates a sense of calm whereby they can actually learn skills and techniques and learn to recognize things in themselves that no one can learn when they're in a fight, flight, freeze state. No learning takes place when you're in that state, because you know, the logical part of the brain shuts down in that state, and which is why you see the dysregulated behavior that you do. It's no learning can take place from there, and yet that seems to be the point at which a lot of parents want to do the teaching by giving consequences to behavior that happens during that time, and that's ultimately why it doesn't work. It's much better to create that low anxiety, teach them skills, teach them you know, self-regulation techniques, and you know, the ability to recognize how they're feeling. It comes with time, it comes with maturity, but it does come. I have an 18-year-old proof of that, who 10 years ago I thought would probably be in prison by now, if I'm being completely honest, judging by behavior back then. We moved to, I would call it a no demand lifestyle. There isn't such a thing as no demand, but it was as low demand as we could possibly make it. I had to let go of everything. Stop, you know, yeah, everything, in order to combat the what was dangerous behavior back then, because we needed to bring that anxiety level down very quickly, for everybody to be safe, including himself and including the rest of us. And we had to start again. We had to build back up from there in a low demand way, judging and observing tolerance levels, and adjusting our responses to that as to how much, when to kind of move forward and when to hold back and when to do nothing. And you know, we did start to see light at the end of the tunnel, and he's now, you know, he's great now. And I know not everybody has the same story, but there is, you know, hope for every young person, because they just need to be understood. And at 18-year-old, he's doing great. He is doing amazing. He's studying to become a personal trainer, and he's very self-regulated. You know, it couldn't be further from what I imagined, in a really good way. And yeah, without coming across PDA and without changing our perspective on how we parented, that, you know, I would imagine that what I feared would have been closer to where we would be now had we not put that in place. So I think that is probably all I wanted to sort of talk about. Obviously, if there are any questions, I'm really happy to answer any questions. There is a link at the top. So the link at the top, it looks very rudimentary, that link, but it takes you to my website where you can get my Managing Demands and Expectations workshop. This is a workshop that I do run via Zoom now and then. I am going to be looking at dates for running a new one. So when we do it via Zoom, I have a maximum of 10 people usually, and we work through this this course. It, from memory, when I did it last time, it took about 3 hours, I think it was, to work through. So we go really in depth. So in depth with some of the things that I've been talking about. And there are activities. It's really interactive and guides you through the process of really fully understanding what demands are, categorizing them, thinking about what yours are, and choosing which category you're going to put them all in, and gives you a lot of guidance to help you sort of follow that, so that you go away with a framework that's adaptable, sort of whether that's for now or you know, a few months down the line as things start to progress. It's completely adaptable and flexible. The link at the top takes you to the downloadable version of it. So the video on that one, it's basically a video of me talking you through the workshop without the interaction with other people, and the video on that one lasts about 90 minutes, but obviously you need to pause it and do the activity, so it will probably take a bit longer than that. So if that is something you're interested in, do go and have a look at my website. That link will take you straight to the page where the workshop is, or if you want to book in with me, I offer a free half-an-hour consultation, which you can book through the website as well. If you just want to have a chat through things to discuss whether it might be suitable for you or not, you can do that as well. And obviously sort of contact, I've got a contact page on there if you prefer to send an email rather than talk on Zoom. And I will be publishing dates for the Zoom course soon. I'm not committing to any dates just yet, but as soon as I know the dates, then I will publish them on the website. And if you are interested, just drop me a message and I'll keep a list of people who might be interested, and so I can email you and let you know when I've chosen the date. So I'm going to pass back to Asma, and yeah, thank you everyone.
Hey Mel, thank you. Yes, I will definitely be nagging you for those dates. Yeah, give me I can tell what you're thinking right now. No, I'm joking. The reason I've come in as well, I know there's a question from Erin on the chat. Well, I'll hand over to Carly, as well as there's a few comments. I really would like to acknowledge them, see if we can answer it, and then we'll hand over back to you for us to finalize and end the room, and how people can reach out to you with your IG, your Clubhouse, and so on. Carly, I'll hand over to you now.
Yeah, no problem. So I'll read everything, and then we'll answer Erin's question. So we're going back. So Erin said, all 5 of us in our house are autistic, ADHD, and PDAs. How would you meet everyone's needs, I presume that means, and help everyone keep regulated when you're the mum without getting overwhelmed? Hubby only recently diagnosed at 52 and has lots to learn and no idea how to acknowledge or regulate his emotions. Actually, I will go back to you, Paula, in a minute. So Erin said, 20 years of nothing working here. My daughter is 22, 12-year-old boys in Australia, just beginning to learn and recognise PDA, hence why nothing has worked for us, not in diagnostic criteria here yet, as we follow the American guidelines. Thankfully, our psychologist knows about it, and as does our new OT and dietitian. We start seeing in the next week or two. All 3 are ND too, so I hope we can start to see light with new insight as I learn more. Yep, just general conversation there. I don't know if you want to answer. How does an autistic mum I mean, you and I can resonate with this. How do autistic mums regulate themselves? How do we keep going? But how do you keep going when there's all of you that are neurodivergent?
It's really difficult, isn't it? So our situation, I can't remember how many children you said you had, but our situation is I'm a single parent, and I've got the three boys. The older two were very close together. There's a bit of an age gap. There's about a 7-year age gap between my middle one and my youngest. In my experience, it's got better as they've got older, but I was only diagnosed last year, and although way before then, when I was looking into my PDA and sort of his difficulties, I obviously did sort of recognize things with him in myself, and even though I did recognize that, I didn't really do anything proactive about it, probably because I didn't have many spoons left after all that. But I think, again, this is going to be very individual. For me, going to the GP, and I actually take medication for my anxiety. I know that's not going to suit everyone. It's not going to be the answer for everyone. But for me, that has really helped me go from quite a stressed out, shouty mum to a quite a chilled out, not so shouty mum. And the other things I've done is to really try and take on board and recognize my own triggers. So when in the past, when I would get shouty, would generally be when there was so even myself, when there were too many demands being made of myself, but that would include sort of too much noise, too much expectation, too much visually going on. And I've learned to adopt the same or similar approaches as to what I recommend for my children. So I have loop earplugs, which are for those who don't know, are the in-ear kind of ear defenders. And I start to notice in myself when, because for me it's feeling in my chest when my anxiety starts to rise, I am more, prone to recognizing everyone's trying to talk to me at once, or there's a lot of background noises are worse for me. So I'll put my loops in and perhaps take myself off somewhere for 5 minutes. Have a cup of tea is usually my go-to. It's really difficult to meet everybody's needs, and it does feel like a massive juggling act. But I feel that if I'm as regulated as I can be, then that helps me deal with everyone else. And for me, that involves a fair amount of self-care. And I'm not talking about going to the spa or, all that kind of thing. Self-care can take any form. For me, I think I've survived the last 10 years with multiple tea breaks, because that is ultimately, as a single parent, one of the only things that I can guarantee. I can take a 5-minute cup of tea break, because going and taking a long bath or going out for a walk aren't always achievable in our family. So we have to get that time out in sometimes really teeny tiny chunks, having a supportive network around me. So like I said earlier, surrounding yourself with people who understand, who are going to be supportive and non-judgmental, makes a huge difference in your ability to be more regulated, because you're reducing that stress from what's going on within your household and outside your household, and the worrying about what people are saying, or it helps strengthen and provides reassurance and validation to you in the way that you're doing things. And I think ultimately there's no one answer. I think it involves you being in the best place you can be, which ultimately, for me, I mean, if I'm not regulated, you can guarantee my kids are not going to be regulated. They feed off my vibes. And when it comes to time of the month, you can guarantee that even though I am still more chilled than I used to be, I can feel my internal anxiety is higher leading up to time of the month. I tend to be a little bit snappier, although not nearly what I used to be. But those are usually the times when things start to unravel, and it can be helpful to just simply go, okay, I acknowledge why that's happened, apologize and say it's not your fault, it's mine, it's my time of the month, I'm feeling more tired, I'm feeling more anxious, and I'm going to try and not do that. And the more it's talked about and explained and understood, then I think the more understanding, especially as they start to get older, everyone can be towards each other. I'm done speaking.
Sorry, I was trying to figure out to come out from the chat and unmute, you know. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. I am still going to hand over to you, Carly, to carry on with the chat and stuff. Because there's lovely comments on the chat, really good supportive, plus few other aspects. The other thing before we do close, and I know you've touched upon it, but I really would like if we can slightly go in the diversion of how can we also support professionals. It doesn't have to be only school, to understand really the benefit of lowering demands, that it supports the individual without them thinking, we're just giving in, you know, it's helping with that aspect. And also if you have got 3 to 5 sort of tips you go to, not because everyone's different and it can be different to everyone, mainly you go to, that can support individuals themselves to be able to lower certain demands within themselves at home or from your experience and stuff. So that's the line, but we will read the questions, we will read what's on the chat, we'll come back to that. And I'm hoping with you as well, I'm hoping to end the room not later than 10:45. Okay, is that all right? Give me a thumbs up. Or awesome, thanks, Mel. Carly, over to you. I don't think Carly can hear me.
Sorry, say that again.
So I was going to ask you to do the chat before we go back to Mel.
Yep, sure. So let's go back. I mean, do you want me to read every single thing?
Yeah, that's fine. If it's not mainly covering, that's fine. I'll leave it to your discretion.
Nia said, learning about PDA and realizing it fits makes such a difference. Strategies are so different to the ones needed for quote unquote classical autism. They definitely work. May take a while, but they do work. Erin said to Paula, so what did Paula say? Erin, hopefully now you're finding out about strategies that will help your family. Erin said, just the beginning of learning, so much to learn. I'm feeling positive that hopefully I will start to learn strategies that will work after so many years, questioning myself and wondering why nothing I was told to do worked. Paula suggested the PDA Society. Lisa said yes. Okay, that was a response to what Mal said earlier. Erin said yes, looked on there. There's just such a huge amount of things to learn and try and absorb with my ADHD brain kicking in. It's very overwhelming. Nia said, I have found PDA group on Facebook very useful. Mel's runs a weekly support group on here at 12:30 UK time. And then they're talking about medicine. Erin said, recognizing triggers I can do, but it's escaping those triggers. She too has earplugs, as does her husband and daughter. But they're a demand for us to use, so we avoid it. She's talking about smoking has given her a release. So she said, this is a problem, I need an answer. I've been trying to make it work for so long. I just need an answer as my head has information overload, so much I want to do and so many people to do things for. Nia suggested Julia to talk about the smoking part. She suggested doing bubbles. Nia said, if you suspect you're a PDA as well, and you didn't realise, and hopefully realising that will help make a sense of why some things are harder than expected. She wears wireless headphones instead of loops to block out noise. And I'm going to quickly just go back to what Paula said with her win, and then I'll hand back to you. Where is it? Okay, I want to share a win. My son has been recovering burnout for 12 months. This time last year, in crisis. Tonight, he walked into the supermarket on his own, got ingredients to make ice cream. This is all helped by no demand parenting and getting loads of advice from you guys. There you go.
Thank you so much, Carly, for that. And thank you for reading the chat, just because I want to catch everything on the recording for those who are really missing out. Some of the support on the chat might help those on recording. Melanie, I'm coming to you now for you to answer the questions, and then we're going to start going to closing the room. So I am going to mute.
So I'm just going to go one question at a time because I've forgotten the second one, if I'm honest. So the first one was with professionals, how they can really support with low demand, and how we help them to understand why that's important. I think when dealing with professionals, it's really tricky, and there are some professionals out there who obviously already know about PDA, already understand the profile, and already understand that low demand, low arousal parenting and support is really beneficial. I think you need to approach things quite carefully. And even if they haven't heard of PDA, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be closed off to things that you suggest. So I think I usually recommend to clients, if they're, for example, they're talking to school staff or professionals about this and why they're doing things in the way they're doing, is to kind of really start tentatively, because typically teachers, staff, professionals are, they've got their jobs and they do a good job, and just because they don't understand something doesn't mean that they can't take it on board. There may be, particularly if we go in all guns blazing, you're more likely to encounter resistance, particularly if it goes against what they understand to be the right way to approach things. So I might sort of turn around and say something like, rather than, look, I've printed off all this information for you, you know, I believe my child's PDA, and this is this information, this is how you should be teaching him in the classroom, and this is how you should be supporting him here, and this is why we do this, and this is why we do that. You're probably going to be met with more resistance than if you went in. I think you have to do it in the same way that you do anything with your PDA, to be honest. Drip feeding tends to work quite well, as in, oh, you know, I've heard about this thing called PDA, and I think my child fits a lot of the criteria. What do you think? And then hand them the list of the key features. You know, it's I think if you approach it in a way that doesn't come across that you're trying to tell them how to do their job, then you're less likely to meet resistance to it. It's really tricky because it's not even just in professionals, it's in people in general, that there is this societal expectation that we do things in a certain way. And even in, you know, professionals who work with children and families, the chances are they're trained in models that support certain ways of managing children's behavior, for example, and that tends to be based about rewards and, you know, around rewards and consequences. And so it's going to be hard, like it's hard for us when we first come across it. It was certainly hard for me to adjust my mindset on it. It is hard to adjust people's mindsets and their beliefs. And I think we have to understand that it's going to take time. And I would like to hope that any professionals out there who happen to listen to this, I would just say, please try and be open-minded about what parents speak to you about. I mean, one of the biggest things is in schools when PDAs who are, you know, they're absolute masters at masking, and so often the school won't see the same behaviors as what parents are seeing at home. And so the parents' concerns are dismissed or they're blamed, and you know, the parent ultimately is dealing with the fallout from holding things together at school. And that is really difficult, because ultimately all we want as parents is to be acknowledged, and to have those challenges acknowledged, and for people to be open-minded that even though you don't see it, or even though you don't agree with it, can you be open-minded to the possibility that, and I think that goes with everything PDA, because it generally, the approaches and everything goes against the grain. I would really ask people coming across this the first time, or, you know, having their first contact with someone presenting with the PDA profile, to really be open-minded and acknowledge that typical approaches tend to be counterproductive. And Asma, I'm going to ask you to remind me what the second question was.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just also quickly add to regarding the professional side of things, and this is coming from a professional as well that I've worked with PDAs in lots of different settings, is I always make it my own way of making sure I do my research, learning and reaching out. And, you know, this is not a blaming factor at anyone at all. It's about, if you're really not sure what it is, please do feel free, you can reach out without feeling that you're not qualified enough of doing your job. I'm really not sure how to say it, because I know somebody said to me, but I've got too much of this. If I reach out when I'm doing my NQT, it's showing I can't do my job. I said, not at all. Do reach out, because using each other's strengths and knowledge, it really, really helps, and it takes that pressure away from you. So I really want to put that there, because I was that professional. That really was. Masking doesn't exist. But then I went, hold on, what the behavior is communicating? Look at that. And then I start changing my perspective. So I just really want to answer this in a professional view as well. The next question was really that your go-to tips, 3 or 5 max. I'm going to leave it to you, that you do as a parent and or a professional advice that can also help the individual PDAs to be able to lowering their own self-demands. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to mute now.
So I'm just going to re-clarify that. So, how our children, young people can help to manage their own demands and expectations. Yeah, okay. So I think ultimately by what you do as parents, so modeling, and it's not just modeling, it's about what you do or how you show your individuals to help them manage their needs. And there's this idea that if we do things for them, so when we talk about lowering demands and stuff, it might be that you help them a lot more than you might help a typical child. And there are so many times when people say, well, how are they ever going to be an independent adult? How are they ever going to learn how to do this? How are they ever going to be able to survive on their own if I'm always doing it for them? And actually what you're doing by supporting them in that way is modeling sort of how to manage those demands and expectations, so that when they can't manage something for themselves, they can ask for help with it. They will begin to recognize through you the times or the situations that make them feel overwhelmed, and what you do in those situations to support them. So, at the beginning, you might be when they're feeling overwhelmed, you might redirect them to bouncing on a trampoline. As they get older, they would start to do that automatically themselves without your help. So you're modeling and showing and ultimately sort of teaching them what they can do. Yes, you do it with support, but that's how anyone learns anything, with support. When you come across PDA for the first time, you're ultimately going back to the beginning and supporting them from the beginning again and building up. Another thing I think is really important is to teach them energy accounting. Again, you can do that by modeling. It's such a helpful tool. One of the main ones talked about in the autism community is spoon theory. Doesn't have to be that. You can find something that your child relates to, but it's about starting the day. If we talk about spoon theory, starting the day with a certain number of spoons. Every demand, interaction, activity, whatever it is, uses up a certain number of spoons. That's going to be different for every individual, and it might be different day to day actually. So for one person, one day a shower might only use 1 spoon. For a different person, or for that person on a really busy day, that shower might use up 2 or 3 spoons. And it's a way of recognizing throughout the day when you're running low on spoons and when you might need to go and take a break or go and do something like, I don't, for a lot of our kids, gaming or tablet time or whatever it is, to help replenish some of those spoons so that they can make it through the rest of the day. You can Google spoon theory and it will explain it in a lot more detail, but I think the whole idea of energy accounting is so useful because it's a visual representation of how they can spend those spoons on the things they need to do and the most important things in the day. And I'm trying to think of a third thing. I'm not sure if I can. Those would probably be my two main ones. Just feeling, I think, as long as they feel really well supported and understood and that you have their back and that you advocate for them, that is probably the biggest thing you could do, because if everyone else in the world isn't getting it right for them, they've got that place of safety at home where they know they're going to feel safe and understood.
Thank you so much, Mel. And I really want to read this. I did promise the person that messaged me, and they're not right now. Clubhouse just had another message from the person. I'm not going to even use gender. Said thank you so much for being very detailed, clear, and really spot on. This conversation and this has made me feel absolutely heard and understood. Thank you so much. I wish I could have been in Clubhouse for all of it and listening. Thank you once again. So I will message that person privately, and then if they do want to reach out, I will do that. So I really did say I will acknowledge it because that person can hear. I'm sharing it directly to her. So sorry if you think I was doing just due to that anxiety regarding coming on stage or online is quite heightened for that person. So once again, thank you. And again, I really want to say thank you to everyone that been on here, on the audience, communicating on the chat, supporting one another on the chat, answering each other's question on the chat. Honestly, this is the whole point of Clubhouse. It really is. This is why we're here, and we give our time, just because some of us, e.g. Mel as well, been there, knows not having the support of somebody that really have gone through it and gets it, how it can be impactful to our detrimental health wise. It can be impactful, detrimental. I don't know what I'm talking about. It can be very detrimental to our mental health. So honestly, use this platform, this community as your well-being to support you, because it has helped me. If it wasn't here, no name mentioned, Carly, I wouldn't have gone forward with my diagnosis and understand myself even more. And I want to thank Clubhouse, Carly, and you, Mel, and everyone here. I'm not going to call everyone name. It has given me more insight, more understanding, and most of all, more accepted, heard, and understood. And this is what this platform do. And I am going to ask Melanie, I know you're not going to like it. I am going to put you on spot because I'm not going to mention your group. You are, and the reason why you started the PDA at Clubhouse and how people can get to it, your IG as well, because really we want to build a community for pathological demand avoidance. Yes, we want to promote you. I'm not going to BS about it, excuse my language, but the main thing is really push the community, the support, the acknowledgement here at Clubhouse, and mainly what you do as well. So I'm going to mute myself. Over to you.
Oh, thank you. And that thank you message read out was lovely, really lovely. So thank you for that. Hopefully you can hear me on Clubhouse still. I just got a red bar of doom. I'm getting thumbs up, so that sounds good to me. So why did I start Positively PDA on Clubhouse? So long story short is that probably about, how long ago? Can't remember. After my son was diagnosed, which was when he was 12, I think it was 12, 13. We'd obviously been through sort of the worst part of things. We fought every step of the way. It was horrendous for his EHCP, and fought every step of the way to get him a diagnosis, and it was horrendous. And I was left feeling that it shouldn't have to be like this. And really, I wanted to use my experience to help other people. And that took quite a long time, to be honest. I do believe I suffered some sort of trauma as a result of everything we've been through, and it took some time to recover from that. But ultimately that resulted several years later in starting Positively PDA, which was initially just a Facebook page, and I took the leap in 2021 to start the website and start supporting people. I've been supporting people in Facebook support groups prior to that. But when I sort of set up Positively PDA as the website, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't, support wasn't just accessible to those who could pay for it, because I wanted to set up the support that I wish had been available when we were going through our most challenging times. And I know that at that point, I wouldn't have been able to afford a certain level of support. So when I set up the business, obviously there are services which people can buy into, and the workshops they can download and stuff like that. But I didn't want to leave anybody behind who couldn't do that. And when Clubhouse came along, I'd heard whispers about it. There was very much a bit of a whisper campaign, and I was keen to get on it. Not actually PDA related, I hasten to add. I was doing something else at the time, and I wanted to get on Clubhouse for that. And actually, when I joined Clubhouse and realized the potential of connecting with and communicating with other people, it just seemed like a complete no-brainer to me to try and set something up for the PDA community. And so the support group started then. And I've met so many amazing people through Clubhouse. So Carly, I know outside of Clubhouse, we know each other in real life, but Asma, I met through Clubhouse. Many of the people down in the audience, in fact, I think almost everyone down in the audience, if I don't know you already, consider yourself known now. I've met through Clubhouse. I've made some amazing friends through Clubhouse, and the PDA community has grown, but the SEND community beyond that is amazing. Just everybody just seems so supportive and non-judgmental, and for me it's a wonderful place to be, surrounded by other neurodivergent adults and parents of neurodivergent children, and everything in between. It's an incredible space, and I urge anyone to get involved in it. So yep. Was that everything you wanted me to just cover? I can't remember.
So
Good in, just so that I catch it. Yes, thank you very much, definitely. And we have posted your website. Do correct me, it is your website at the top, just because it's coming up really funny on my end. As you know, I have loads of glitches. Your website at the top. Do you also want me to post your PDA open group link so people are aware, and from there, if they need to join your private, we want to chat about that as well, so people know what to do, so they don't click it and then don't have the support, because I know I've got quite a few new people here. And also, if you don't mind, I know we've shared it, but for the recording side as well, if people want to join Clubhouse, do you want to say very quickly how they can message us on Clubhouse and join the house? So everything to do with that before we end. Is that all right?
Okay, so I was trying to think before I unmuted. I was like, the cogs were turning. So yeah, with regards to the website link at the top, very quickly, it displays weirdly because it's taking you to the page directly where my workshop is. You can navigate from there to the main part of the website if you want to have a look around. There's a blog and other stuff that might be worth looking over. So with regards to my PDA support group, there should be, what I will try and do is find the link for that. The group is a closed group. It is for adults with either diagnosed or suspected PDA, or parents, carers, family members of individuals diagnosed or suspected PDA. And there is a wait list. So what I do is give people the wait list link and ask them to join that. I can then sort of go through and approve those who should be in the group, and anyone who tries to join the group who doesn't fall into that criteria is then you know, not approved. So if that is something you are interested in, I'm just going to try and get the link to put at the top. And
no, it's okay, I will do that. So I send you a chat. I will put your link up if you want me to, while you're conversing and it stops anything. You want me to do that? Yeah, I'll just share.
There should be a wait list link.
Okay. I'm going to be quiet just so I can find it. You carry on letting people know a little bit about Clubhouse.
Yeah, excellent. So for those who are not familiar with Clubhouse or are not listening on Clubhouse, Clubhouse is a social media app. It's audio only. So if you kind of imagine Zoom without the video, but much cooler. And it's a bit like a live podcast or a live radio type thing. And you can download the app from your app store. It's completely free to do so. And once you've registered, you're basically in. And you can obviously fill out your profile, and you can then search for things that might interest you. So Asma's house that we're doing this in is called Achievable Journey, and mine is called Positively PDA Support Group. And you can type those search things into there, or you can type in sort of topics that might interest you, such as autism, disability, parenting support, that kind of thing. And it's all completely free to be a part of. And yeah, once you get into it, it's quite different to navigating things like Facebook and Instagram and stuff, but you know, give it a go, and just kind of, it's such a lovely community. I really would recommend it to anybody. And you never know who you're going to bump into. And like I said, I've made some amazing connections and friends that without Clubhouse I never would have made.
Amazing, brilliant. I have shared both of your link up so people can see it. And I'm going to try in a minute to put your workshop website link that you gave me, plus the other two link on the chat, so then it's everywhere. And I did say we're going to close at 10:45. I never meet my target. One day we'll do that. But again, I really want to thank you, Mel, for giving your time, your expertise, your knowledge to come here and share. And I can tell how passionate you are to really make a huge difference on our parents' lives and experience. And that's one thing I do really connect with you and see that. So apology if I keep pushing. I know you do tell me off, but hey, we're alive. This is nothing behind the scene. This is as you see it. But I genuinely want to thank you, because I know how it can be too busy and too much. So thank you once again to be here. I also want to thank Carly, as always, coming in, supporting our community. Should I say me as well on the chat? I have to acknowledge that. But I genuinely want to say thank you. And this is such an amazing place. I promise you, for those who's listening, Clubhouse is not paying us, or they're not giving us any acknowledgement for promoting it. The reason we keep saying this, it has grown me as a person, and I have met an amazing community that I wouldn't have known this existed, and this is global around the world. I can see Jen here, who's in, in the States, and quite a few other people. I've met other people that's in Australia and so on. And this is what the community brings. And we want you to feel heard, understood, without judgment. Please don't feel, it's about numbers. It's not really, they're not about numbers of followers. Don't need to follow me. And I know I'm speaking for Carly and Mel. You don't need to follow Carly and Mel. You can come and follow the house and listen to it. And if you had enough, you leave if it's not for you. It's just we want to put that there because we know it's a valid tool that is missing to have such a great community. So again, thank you so much. Mel, as you know me, I love all of my guests to end the room with their own final statement. While you're doing that, I'm going to pretend I'm so clever to go and share all of your links. All right. So when you speak, feel free to end the room. Just tell me so I can stop the recording here as well. I'm not going to do anything now. Over to you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've really enjoyed speaking to everyone this evening, and you're right, it is a complete passion of mine. And so this is one of the things that really makes me feel good, being able to help other people and talking about my favorite subject, which is of course PDA. And I'm going to apologize for my dog in the background. She always appears at some point, but it's been great to see familiar faces in here and some new faces in here. And thank you to everyone who also watches the recording when that's shared. And as Asma said before, if you want to reach out, if you go away and you think, oh my gosh, I should have asked that, or actually this really resonated with me, I need to talk to someone, do reach out. We're here on Clubhouse. You can direct message us. I'm on Facebook under Positively PDA, or my own name. which is my personal profile. It's getting a bit late, so my brain is fried. Also on Instagram under Positively PDA, and via the website, which I mentioned earlier. You are always welcome to reach out. Please don't feel that you can't. I adore my job, and I adore it because I like to feel that I can help people through the experience that I've been through. And it's really important to me to be able to do that. So yeah, just thank you for being here. I really hope that it's helped. For me, it's felt like a big info dump out of my brain, and I know that it hasn't necessarily been received like that, but it's hard. I find it hard to process and remember what I've said and what I haven't said. So if there is anything extra, please do reach out. And yeah, I think that's probably it for me. So Asma, have you finished sharing the links, and would you like me to close the room?
Yes, please feel free. I'm gonna stop the recording now.